Welcome to the second module of the course. Today I want to talk about the role of fats in a healthy diet and look at the myths and the facts. This is part of how to improve your metabolic health naturally. So as a health and wellness coach, what I'm going to tell you here is not intended to diagnose, treat or cure any medical condition. This session is designed to provide guidance and support in making these lifestyle changes, including the dietary adjustments to improve your overall well-being. It's not a substitute for professional medical advice, and any significant health concerns should be discussed with your GP. As a pharmacist on this course, I'm available for private consultations regarding your medications. If you experience any side effects, we can discuss them. However, I would advise you to consult your GP before making any changes. Now, on this program, there we go. On this program, the eating principles to sustain health will include not to count any calories, to eat until you feel comfortably full, and wait until you're hungry again before you eat. And if you find that you're snacking often in between meals, it might be that you're not eating enough fat. So here are some examples of healthy high-fat foods. Macadamia nuts, but for those I won't really recommend them because they're really expensive. Unless you have those funds and you want to buy them, then you can, but I usually don't buy them. Pecan nuts, quite reasonable. Olives, avocados, salmon, mackerel, sardines, herrings, fatty pork, fatty lamb and mutton, and beef, fatty beef and duck. Now when it comes to meat, I want you to eat the meat, the chicken, whatever you're eating, with the fat on it. Do not get rid of it. And even when you cook it, if you grill it and you get the drippings, you can use that to fry your eggs or cook other meals. But you must be eating all your meat with the fat as it comes, as nature intended. So again, we have here extra virgin oil, we have butter and ghee, mayonnaise and eggs. I think I've covered the egg section, but these are all high fat foods. Right, so when you're choosing your fat, I'd ask you to choose natural fats over the industrial seed oils. Now here is a Venn diagram, and I want you to focus mainly on all the fats in the left circle. So that's the butter, the coconut oil, ghee, lard, which is fat from pork, tallow, fat from beef, and palm oil. We also have in the middle, we have olive oil, and then the more expensive avocado oil and the macadamia oil. Again, I wouldn't recommend you go out and buy those because they tend to be those last two tend to be quite expensive. What I want you to avoid is canola oil. I think here in the UK it's called rapeseed oil, soybean, sunflower, corn, grapeseed oil and margarine. So anything that's highly processed, and I'm going to demonstrate to you how these oils are made, I want you to avoid them. Now, palm oil has gotten bad press in the West, and that's because I think in Indonesia they fell the forest and they plant large plantains of palm oil, and they even put it in our biscuits. It's in everything that they make. But when we make palm oil in West Africa, so Ghana and Nigeria, it's often cold pressed, so it's just as good as olive oil. So why do fats keep you fuller for longer? One of the main things is fats have 9 calories per gram and carbs have 4 calories per gram. So you can eat less fat and be fuller because it's more calorie dense. Fats also have a minimum effect on blood sugar and insulin, and I'll talk about that later. And small amounts of fat provide sustained energy and satiety. So that's why fats are really, really good. But the most important part is that they have minimum effect on insulin. So fats keep insulin levels low. And this is a really important thing that we need to learn and know about to help us on this journey. So here's a graph of how food affects blood sugar. So the dotted lines are like greens, carbohydrates, blue, protein, and then the thin red line are fats. And the solid lines are the corresponding insulin responses to these macronutrients that we eat. If you're really healthy and you don't have diabetes and you have a high carbohydrate meal, so this will spike your blood sugar, so that's the dotted line, and then as that starts to climb, so will insulin start climbing. It will be spiked, and that will push the blood sugar level down to the optimal level that it has to be in our bloods to keep us safe. And this usually takes about 2 hours after eating. But if you have diabetes, this blood sugar spike might remain much longer. When you look at protein, so that's the dotted blue line, you would see that the insulin spike is much less, so that's the solid blue line. And then when we eat fats, there's hardly any insulin spike. So fats are very, very good because they don't spike insulin. When insulin is high, the body will store fat. So anytime you eat a carbohydrate and your insulin level goes really high, your body is in fat storage mode. When insulin is low, the body is able to burn fat. So therefore, when you have fats, when you do eat fats, you are not storing fat, you are actually burning it because it doesn't spike insulin. When the body burns fat, the byproduct is ketones. And this is where the term ketogenic diet comes from. So let's look at carbohydrate meal frequency, blood sugar and insulin levels. The optimum level of blood sugar in an adult is about 1 teaspoon in your blood. So an adult has about 5 liters of blood, and when it's optimal, we have only 1 teaspoon present. So let's say you wake up and you eat a high carb breakfast. Your blood sugar, which is the green line, will go up, and then after that, that will stimulate the insulin. The insulin will come up and push the blood sugar down back into the optimal level. Then you wait a few hours and then you have lunch and it happens again, and your insulin comes up, pushes the blood sugar into the cells, and we burn that energy. And then dinner again, the same thing happens. And each time the body is striving to keep the blood sugar down to that 1 teaspoon full in our blood. Okay, now when it comes to what a lot of us do is we have our breakfast, and mid-morning we have a snack, then we have lunch and snack and dinner, and just before we go to bed we have another snack. So here you can see the blood sugar doesn't actually come down to the optimal level, which is in the red box, but it keeps rising, and so does the insulin, because the insulin is forever active, and that keeps rising as well to try and push the blood sugar level down. So remember, when insulin levels are high, we store fat, and we cannot burn fat in the presence of high insulin. And this is why we put on weight when we eat frequently and when we eat carbohydrates frequently. So let's compare fats and carbohydrates. So as I told you, an energy content of per gram for fats is 9 calories per gram, and for carbohydrates is only 4 calories per gram. So you have to eat twice as much carbs to get the same amount of energy from fats. The fats have minimal or no impact on blood sugar, but carbohydrates rises blood sugar and causes blood sugar spikes. When it comes to the effect on insulin, again, carbohydrates have very minimal response of insulin, but we have a significant insulin response when we eat carbohydrates, and that causes insulin spikes. So when it comes to feeling full, fats cause high satiety and promotes fullness. However, carbohydrates, they're less satiating and leads to hunger soon. So you will find sometimes when you have a high carb meal, soon after, about a couple, 3 hours later, you feel like eating again. But if you eat a fatty meal, you can go for much longer. Okay, when it comes to storage in the body, this is really, really important. When you're on a low carbohydrate diet, the lower insulin levels reduce fat storage. Remember, insulin has to be high to store fat, but fat doesn't allow insulin to spike. So you can take excess fat and that will not cause your insulin to spike, but you can also use that extra fat in your blood as energy, and it will not be stored because insulin is low. However, when you eat excess carbohydrates, it drives the insulin, and in the presence of insulin, carbs are converted via a process called de novo lipogenesis, that's just generating fat in the liver, and this leads to fat storage and metabolic dysfunction over time. Metabolic dysfunction is, we're just talking about blood pressure, blood sugar, and fat distribution of your body, and that gets broken over time. So this is the most important point that I would love to stress. When you eat excess fat, you're not triggering insulin spikes. We need insulin to store energy, but because there's no insulin spike with the excess fat, you're not storing energy. However, when you do eat carbohydrates, you do get an insulin spike, and once insulin is high, you will store energy, and the carbohydrates are converted to fat and then stored in the body. So fats, what's their effect on hormones? It promotes a hormone called leptin release, and that signals fullness. It can, when it comes to carbohydrates, they actually disrupt leptin signaling. Now, leptin is a satiety hormone. When it's disrupted by constant carbohydrate eating, then the signal doesn't work, and we don't get that signal feedback in our brain to tell us that we're full, and we will continue eating. Fats contain a lot of nutrients, so the fat soluble vitamins, that's the A, D, E, K, and often the carbohydrates that we eat are stripped of their nutrients and refined. So for instance, when we're eating rice, it's polished, all the nutrients are taken out, and it's just starch. Whereas, when you eat fats, we have all these other vitamins in them. So what types of fats do we have? We have the saturated, monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. And then when it comes to carbohydrates, it's just simple sugars, and then those sugars that say have high GI, so the complex ones, the ones with high fiber. So that's what we got. What's the long-term impact? So stable energy for fats and less fat storage when you eat fats. However, when it comes to eating carbohydrates, we have increased fat storage if we consume them all the time. So here are some examples which we've come across already: butter, olive oil, avocado, tallow and lard, and then bread, pasta, rice and sugary snacks. Those are examples of carbohydrates. Okay, so I want to talk about leptin. So I said fats regulate hunger better than carbs. So we want to talk about leptin, which is a satiety hormone, or the fat regulating hormone. So leptin is a hormone that signals fullness to your brain. It helps us stop eating. And if it doesn't work properly, you may feel hungry even after you've eaten a large amount of food. So for instance, let's say you go to a restaurant and you have a meal and you feel really full, but after the meal, you just be sitting there 20 minutes and you still want to have a dessert because you don't feel that full because you've eaten a lot of carbs. So fats trigger satiety hormones like leptin. There's several other satiety hormones as well, but I just want to focus on leptin. And while refined carbs disrupt leptin signals, they cause what we say is leptin resistance and overeating. So refined carbs will not give you that leptin feedback to your brain, and it will just make you overeat and overeat. And you can see this because when you take a child to McDonald's and they have bottomless Coke, that it has a lot of carbohydrates in the Coke, like sugars, and they can drink the whole thing and yet still go and eat a whole Mac. But if that feedback was coming from the Coca-Cola or from the carbohydrates in the Coca-Cola, they wouldn't feel like eating more food, but you can eat so much more when you eat carbohydrates. So fats cause a stable blood sugar, and it helps prevent energy crashes, and this helps support better hunger control. So let's look at leptin resistance. Again, it's the hormone that sends signals to the brain to indicate satiety. And here you can see the red line is telling the lady eating that she's full. Leptin resistance arises when the receptors in the hypothalamus lose their sensitivity to leptin, and this is caused by carbohydrates and other things. I'm going to talk about that. When you have leptin resistance, you never feel satisfied, right? So what are the causes of leptin resistance? Chronic overeating, high sugar and refined carbohydrate intake, chronic inflammation, high triglycerides, sleep deprivation. Sometimes you realize that when you don't sleep very well, you wake up feeling really hungry and you can eat a whole lot more. Then we have obesity and chronic, I can't see what that is. Let's see if I can move this. No, I can't move it. Right, never mind. Okay, here we are. So now it's not by chance. I think it's definitely linked. When the low fat guidelines were published in 1980, that's when obesity started rising in the US. So people do follow guidelines, and when they're told that, oh, fat's bad for you, and they stop eating the fat, then they do these things, and that's when obesity started taking over. But one thing that one has to realize is if you're eating less fat, you're going to have to get your energy from somewhere. And it looks like our energy intake hasn't gone down, but now we're getting our energy from carbohydrates, and that's what's causing the problem. Okay, here we are. So will any fat do? No. Actually, absolutely, I don't think so, because there are different types of fats, and we have fats that we get from seed oils. So seed oils are the industrial oils that are made from things like corn, soya, canola, and they cause inflammation. Now, one of the things that we have to think about is, if you boil corn, have you ever seen a droplet of fat coming out of the corn? No. So it has to go through a chemical process to produce fat from it. And these chemical processes are not natural for us, and that's why they can cause inflammation in some people. They use harmful methods to do these processing, and when these fats get into our bodies, they have a very long half-life. So the time for the concentration of the fat to fall to like 50% is very, very long, and it can take from weeks to months to years to get these manufactured fats out of our system, and many people say it causes inflammation, and when they stop eating them, they feel much better. So these are some of the most widely used seed oils. So the first one is rapeseed. You see that when you travel across the UK in the summer, you see fields full of gold flowers. That's rapeseed, and they make oil out of that. And then in America, it's called canola. Corn oil, cottonseed oil, grapeseed oil, rice bran, and safflower oil, soya oil, sunflower oil, and vegetable oil. And I think the vegetable oil is even more dangerous because we never know what they've used to make vegetable oil. They just call it vegetable oil. What vegetables? Which vegetables do you see when you boil that oil comes out of? So that's quite worrying. So these are how the seed oils are made. First they're cleaned, then they're ground, they're pulverized, they're pressed, and then the oil is extracted. They use solvents like hexane, which is a chemical compound. They boil it and they refine it. They put it in a centrifuge. They degum the oil. I don't know, they're taking stuff out. Then they bleach it. So then again, they have to use another compound to bleach it and deodorize it. So it must be smelling really bad, and they take those scents out. They add citric acid, preservatives, and if they want to make margarine, they hydrogenate it to make it thick, and then you get your vegetable oil. So you can see that these oils, they go through a really long chemical process. And if you think about our forefathers, they never ate these things. So that's why they're probably healthy. They were just eating animal fats and fats from coconut or whatever. But now we have all these factories that make and if you see these factories, they're huge plants to produce these oils. Okay, what we got? So how do we switch to natural fats? We would use animal fats like tallow, lard, butter, ghee, and they're affordable and they're nutrient dense. Now, I think you might be a bit worried about them, but I'm going to talk about them a bit later, but about their impact on cardiovascular disease. So gradually reduce your reliance on industrial seed oils. I usually release this video very early on the program so that you don't, when you're going to stock up, you don't go and buy the right oils. Remember, we're only doing this for 2 months. You will notice a difference in your health, absolutely. So just give it a try and trust me. Aim when you reduce these when you reduce the seed oils, as we progress through the program, something's going to happen to your body, and you're going to be fat adapted because you will slowly cut out the carbohydrates and replace that with fats, and you realize that your body will thrive on fat. And when it starts thriving on fat, we say you're fat adapted because now you can use fat as energy. Whereas before, when you were just relying on carbohydrates, because it makes the blood sugar go up very quickly, your body works very hard to bring those sugars down. So they use the carbohydrates as energy, but you can use fat as energy. Once you start using fat as energy and your enzymes are all trained to do that, your body will realize that I have so much fat around. And that's the belly fat, the subcutaneous fat, the fat under your skin, and your body will start using that as energy as well. So I just wanted to tell you a bit about the industrial fats and the natural fats. So you get industrial fats from the vegetable oils, as I said, soya bean, corn, and sunflower. But natural fats are found in whole foods like avocados, nuts, seeds, and meats. Processing, they're highly processed and they're refined, so they're bleached, deodorized, and hydrogenated. And when it comes to animal fat, it's minimal or no processing. So for instance, if you grilled a piece of beef or pork or whatever, the fat just strips out and there's hardly any processing. Industrial fats have high omega-6 acids in them. And they often contain trans fats because they're manufactured. Now, having high omega-6 is not well, having omega-6 is not a bad thing, but what happens is because of the way we eat now, we have more omega-6 than we have omega-3. So omega-3 comes from the natural fats, and and then when that balance goes off, that's when the omega-6 causes inflammation. And what are the health effects? So the industrial fats can contribute to inflammation, insulin resistance, and heart disease, whereas the natural fats just support health, improve your health, and regulate your metabolism. So there's so many benefits associated with natural fats. Okay, let's look at cholesterol and heart disease, because many people are scared about cholesterol and heart disease, and I'm going to demonstrate to you that there's no proven link between high LDL and heart disease. This hypothesis was developed in the 1950s and 60s, and we are still going by it. Why are we still focusing on it? There's so much evidence out there that there's no link, but why we would still be focusing on it is also there's so much money involved in getting people to reduce their LDL. Now, why is that? Because the pharmaceutical industry is selling all these statins. If we don't believe this hypothesis, people are going to stop making money. We need to think about ourselves. So modern science has challenged this outdated low-fat guideline. There's no correlation or link between the amount of the so-called bad cholesterol, which is the LDL cholesterol, in the blood and the rate of death from heart attacks and strokes. Now, there's a study that has shown that some people who have low cholesterol and others have high cholesterol, yet both groups have died from cardiovascular disease. No connection between LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol levels, and heart disease, according to the researchers of that study. When that study came out, lots of people were upset about it, because I mean, if this is going in like country, nation, worldwide, people are going to stop buying statins. So they said, oh, it wasn't conducted properly, but it's very true. When some people have low LDL and they have heart attacks, some people have high LDL and they have heart attacks. How do you explain that lowering LDL actually reduces heart attacks and strokes? And I'll have some videos. I'll put the videos in the links, and I hope you watch them. Okay, in the summary notes, sorry. So in summary, the key benefits of healthy fats on a low carb diet, let's look at them. So fats can produce a primary energy source. They provide sustainable energy when carbs are limited. They will not provide energy if you're eating a high carb diet, because your body is going to, the carbohydrates are very dangerous in our blood, and our body is going to work really hard to bring those sugars down before they start glycating the nerves of the eyes, the kidneys, and causing all these problems, so therefore, unless our carbohydrate level is low, our bodies will unless they're low, our bodies will not metabolize the fats. So we have to keep the carbohydrates low so they can start metabolizing the fats. And we have so many fats. We're carrying fats under our skin, in our organs, which is causing our blood pressure and diabetes and all that. And you will notice by the end of the 2-month course, your belly fat will have gone down, because when we are very low with carbohydrates, your body will start metabolizing that fat that we carry, and that's where the healing comes from. Okay, when you metabolize fats, it promotes ketosis, and ketones are used as energy. Ketones are the byproduct from fat metabolism, and it can be used as energy for all your cells in your body. And we will know you're in ketosis because these ketones will start appearing in your urine. If you eat too many carbs, you will not detect any ketones in your urine. Okay, fats, they help promote brain health, and you notice that when you go low carb, your cognitive function will improve. and because the brain is using the ketones as an energy source. Fats, they cause high satiety, and when you feel full all the time, it reduces your hunger, and that helps you lose weight because you're not always snacking. They're very good for hormonal balance because they're very essential for our hormone production and metabolism. They reduce inflammation because the healthy fats have omega-3s in them, which is really good to and it helps lower our inflammation. And fats can be used for energy, and that's called fat oxidation, and it helps you lose weight. I've already explained that. So really, really, really good. It will not make you store fat because it will keep your insulin levels low. Remember, when your insulin levels are low, you burn fat. Right, okay. So what are the key takeaways? Eat enough fats to stay satiated. When you eat your food, I'm going to encourage you to add fat to the food. Unless you have a gallbladder problem, then you should limit the fat. But even if you do have a gallbladder problem, what I would recommend is you slowly increase your fats, and you won't have that problem. Choose the natural fats over processed oils. So there's a shopping list for you. When you go buy your olive oil, when you grill your food, make sure you save the dripping from the food that you've grilled and use that to make other things. Fats support stable energy. It prevents the glucose dips and spikes, and that leads to satiety and fat burning. And ignore the myths about fats and cholesterol. If you have any questions, put it in the comments or ask on the WhatsApp group. Thank you for listening, and good luck.